Today, I will show you how to build a simple composting toilet and also explain how one works. Let's get started. You're probably asking, Jaden, what on earth is a composting toilet? Well, let's start off by taking a look at a basic composting toilet design. A composting toilet has two areas, one where all the liquid wastes go and one for the solid waste. The liquid waste could simply go to an outdoor field, while the solid waste needs a little bit more help. We will come back to this in a minute. Now that we have a basic design of a composting toilet, we can now learn how a composting toilet works. A composting toilet is a type of toilet that decomposes the waste. This is compared to a regular toilet that just flushes the waste to a facility where it's processed and flushed into a river or something similar. The upside of a composting toilet is the fact that a composting toilet uses almost no water compared to a normal toilet that uses almost 2 gallons of water per flush. Now, a composting toilet can't just decompose the waste on its own. Instead, we need to give the toilet a bit more help. In our case, we will use a 40mm fan and a decomposer material like sawdust, dried leaves, or peat moss. If we add our decomposer on top of the solid waste, the moisture in the waste will rise to the decomposer and turn into water vapor, which is then removed by the fan. The fan also helps remove odors from the waste. Waste sitting under the decomposer will begin to compose while the fan is running. This process will then repeat over and over again as you layer the waste and decomposer. Now that we know how a composting toilet works and what it is, let's expand on our design from earlier. Our design will use the same 2 compartments for the solid and liquid waste. For the solid waste, we will use a 2-gallon bucket along with a 40mm fan to remove the moisture. As for the liquid waste, we will use a device called a urine diverter. This device is designed with the shape of a toilet seat. This helps divide the solids from the liquids. Now, you could just buy a urine diverter online, or we could design and 3D print a diverter ourselves. After a quick look online, I very quickly decided on making one myself. I started off by taking 2 measurements of a round toilet seat and turned these measurements into a half circle. In Blender, I extruded the half circle into a half cone with a flat bottom. I exported the half cone into Tinkercad, added some tabs and a barb, and we've completed the diverter's design. I then 3D printed the diverter and set it aside for now. With that out of the way, we can now move on to the rest of the build. For my build, I want to use the toilet as a bench in a water closet. This means that the width of my toilet will be the width of the water closet. After taking a few measurements, I decided on a size of 34.5 inches by 22 inches and 16 inches tall. I then cut some 2x4s to the size of 24.5 inches, 22 inches, and 13 inches. Once I had 4 2x4s with these sizes listed above, I screwed the 2x4s into a basic frame. I then cut some plywood that would fit on top and front of the frame. After I screwed the plywood onto the frame, I then proceeded to mark and cut a hole for the bucket and diverter. I then proceeded to sand the front and top of the bench with 80 and 220 grit sandpaper until I was left with a smooth surface. For the finish of the wood, I decided to use 1 coat of stain plus poly along with a coat of polyurethane. I applied the first coat of stain and polyacrylic along with a coat of watered down polyacrylic. This gives the wood a very smooth look and finish. After the finish dried, I used the mounting tabs on the bottom of the diverter to screw the diverter onto the toilet. Once the diverter was installed, I gave it 2 coats of Deft Clear wood finish. This seals the small gaps between the 3D printed layers. Once the Deft was dry, I then sealed the small gaps on the top of the toilet using bathroom sealant. With the diverter installed, we can now install the fan. I start off by designing an adapter that will allow me to mount the fan onto a 2-inch PVC pipe at a 35-degree angle. I will use this pipe as the exhaust outside for the fan. I also designed a bracket for mounting the pipe at the back of the toilet. Once I 3D printed the parts, I assembled the parts, making sure that the fan is blowing out of the pipe. I screwed the pipe bracket onto the back 2x4 and slid the pipe through the mount. But before I went any further, I attached the seat on the top, on center with the hole. I then lined up the pipe with the bucket, making sure that the fan isn't in the way of anything flying. I screwed the pipe onto the bracket, and the toilet is pretty much complete. With the toilet complete, you're likely asking, Jaden, what does the urine diverter drain into? Well, the urine diverter can drain into a jug on the ground, or in my case, into an existing sewer system. The rest is up to you. How to use this type of toilet? For the liquid waste, place all and only liquid waste into the urine diverter and give it a few sprays of sanitizer. For solid waste, place all and only solid waste into the bucket lined with a plastic bag along with a heavy layer of decomposer on the bottom. With the solids on the decomposer, add another layer of decomposer on top and make sure that the fan is running. Keep in mind that the fan must run whenever waste is in the bucket. The rest of the disposal is up to you. Now, I do plan on installing this toilet in the water closet and powering the fan with a solar panel. But until I can get the rest of my house on board with this idea, this works for now.